Welcome back to Georgette's psychology videos. Today we're going to go through the whole book. I'm going to do the whole of paper 1 today. Okay, right, this is the intro. My plans for today are do videos for the whole of paper 1 of psychology. Pre-warning, my allergies are so bad today, so that's not gonna be fun. But I was like, if I don't do this, I'm just gonna lie in bed all day because my allergies are so bad. But okay, my plans for today are to do a whole of paper 1 of psychology, make videos for every 2 pages, one video per every 2 pages, and then do all the questions that are in the book at the bottom of the page, and then plan 16 markers for basically everything apart from the things that have been a 16 marker for the last 3 years. But yeah, that's my plans for today. Now let's get into it in the next video. Starting with Ash. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to look at the book. I'm going to try and do as much as I can without the book. I'll have the book here, I'm not going to look at it. And then when I get stuck, I'll look at the book. Then afterwards, I'll look at the book and I'm going to review anything important that I think I missed. So, Ash investigated conformity. In his original baseline study, he looked at 123 American men, and he arranged them in groups of 6 to 8 people, and so the naive participant was either the last person in the row, the circle, or the second to last person. And all his confederates would say the wrong answer in a line judging task where they had the standard line, is that the name for it, and then the comparative lines, and on 2 different rectangles, cards, the standard line, the comparative lines. So 3 comparative lines, and in the baseline study they were all clearly not the right line, it was really obvious they weren't matching lines to this one, the ones that weren't. And the confederates of Ash all said the wrong answer, and then Ash basically found that conformity to the wrong answer of the line judging task was 36.8%. However, there were some individual differences, and in 25% of people never conformed. Okay, next onto Ash's variations. Okay. I've done this video 10 times before, but it's fine. This is going to be the best I ever do, and then after this it's slowly going to get less and less knowledge. But Ash's variations, he investigated task difficulty, unanimity and group size, and he wanted to investigate how these affect conformity. So in the task difficulty variation, he made the line judging tasks harder, so he made the comparative lines closer to the significant line. And this was to test for information or social influence, which is the least common out of the 2 reason why people conform. And he found conformity decreased to 25%, less than a quarter of what it had been in the original study, which doesn't make sense, but that's what it says in the book. And this suggests that in more ambiguous situations where we are less certain about the answer, we are more likely to conform to the opinions of others because we believe they are correct and we are wrong. We doubt our own abilities. In the group size variation, he varied the number of participants. Anyways, I can't remember where I got up to. In the group size variation, I think he varied the participants from 1 to 15, so 2 to 16 overall participants, including the naive. And he found there was a positive correlation between group size and conformity levels up to a point, up to 7 people. After 7 people, it levelled off. And I think at 7, right, these stats I never remember. I think at 1 person, conformity was 12.5%. And then at 7 people, I think it was 42. I don't think it was that high. Okay, we'll just say that. And I'll check in a minute. And So this suggests that we are more susceptible, I don't know how to say that word, but I can write it and that's all that matters. We are more susceptible to the opinions of others, to a point, only up to 7 people according to Ash, which doesn't really make sense. That can be an evaluation point. Lacks face validity, that. This suggests, this is because of normative social influence, which basically means we want to be part of a group. We don't want to be shunned or socially outcast. We want to be in the group. We want to be part of the gang. So, yeah. This is why we conform. This is the most common reason why people conform. This is like why we conform in everyday life. And we don't want to be isolated. Okay, the third variation. Have I done all of them? Okay, the third variation was unanimity. So Ash put in a dissenter. And the dissenter either offered a different wrong answer or they offered the correct answer, and Ash found in both variations conformity decreased. I don't think there's a number for that. Anyway, he found conformity decreased because when a dissenter is present, this is like resistance to social influence, which I was just doing. You're psychologically free to act independently and according to your own beliefs. And also, there's something else. It breaks like the power of the majority. Like the majority is no longer as powerful. There's like, you see a crack in the unanimity of it. And also, if someone else is disagreeing, you don't feel alone. Like you're less influenced by normative social influence if you know you're not going to be isolated in your wrong answer. So it's an ally. Now we're going to look at what I got wrong in wait, I'll do this so I can't look at the evaluation because we'll do that in the next video. So baseline study, I think I got that all correct. Apart from I couldn't remember what the X line, it's the standard line. Okay, I got that. And then the comparative lines. I think I just need to remember to say X and ABC, but I don't know if that's that important. And on each trial the participants had to say out loud their answer. That's kind of important. Okay, physical arrangements, I got that correct. I got the findings correct. Variables, group size, curvy linear relationship, not positive correlation. Well, positive correlation up to a point, up to 7. But it was a curvy linear relationship because after that it levelled off. Okay, 3 Confederates. Okay, I need to find a way to remember these numbers. 3 Confederates conformity was 31.8%. Okay, unanimity. I got that all right. Yeah, the rate because I said the rate decreased to less than a quarter for task difficulty, but it decreased to less than a quarter for unanimity. And task difficulty, it doesn't have a number in here, but I think I got that right. What did I say it was? 25%. I think that must be correct. Okay, now on to evaluation. Okay, evaluation. Hold on, I need a quick drink. Evaluation of Ash. Okay. Artificial tasks, artificial stimuli, because the line judging task is like, well, it's a stupid task, like, let's be real, it doesn't really reflect conformity in real life, does it? Like, it's reflecting a very small area of conformity, and this might have lacked mundane realism because it doesn't reflect real life, which means it lacks external validity, which means the participants might have been affected by demand characteristics, and this means they might have engaged in the 2 types of bias, the please you and the screw you bias, which means please you means they figured out the aims and they wanted to change their answers to help the experimenter what they thought they were meant to do, and screw you, they purposely gave answers that they thought would mess up the experiment. So demand characteristics, tasks don't really reflect real life, can't really be generalised to real life areas of conformity. Okay, next evaluation point. All male participants. That's not good. That's beta bias because he's underestimating the differences between the men and women. So they can't be generalised to both men and women. And was there a study with women? I don't know. And culturally biased because it was set in the US, which is an individualistic culture. And Nito found that in China, collectivist culture, people conformity was much higher because we care much more about the opinions of others in collectivist cultures because you're a collective. What else is there to say about Ash? Not a lot. It lacks face validity. I can't remember why I said that. Well, it has some face validity because it does make sense why we conform. Oh, Lucas, informational social influence. He found the harder the maths questions were, the more likely participants were to conform because of ambiguity, and we don't want to be wrong. Oh, and then real world application. This is valuable in schools and institutions where we can see like a student's conforming. We can maybe introduce a dissenter, like social support, or we can intervene with their conformity to help them learn better. Now let's see what I got. Oh, ethical issues, I didn't say that. Research support, Lucas. And limited application, I said that. And the man characteristics, I said that. I just need to add, Susan Frisky said the groups weren't very groupy. But Ash is in the bag. Types of conformity. There are 3 types of conformity: identification, compliance, and internalisation. Internalisation is the deepest level of conformity. This encompasses a fixed and permanent change in your conformity behaviour and the way you think. So both your behaviour to the thing you're conforming to changes, and what you think, your cognitions change as well, like your opinions and values change. And this happens in both public, in front of the thing that's making you conform, e.g. a friend who's behaving in a certain way, and in private. So even when you're not with that friend, the source of the conformity, you're still going to behave in the way that you've been conforming to. And this is permanent and long term, and it's both private and public, and your beliefs and your behaviour change. And it's the deepest level of conformity. And identification is the middle level of conformity. This is where, in public, your behaviour changes to the conforming source of conformity, like your friend, and your belief changes. So in public, how you feel also changes in front of the source of the conformity. So if I was like, oh, I'm going to conform to how they're behaving, they're swearing a lot, so in public I'm going to swear a lot and I'm going to think that's okay and that's acceptable behaviour. And in private I'm going to think, actually that wasn't okay and that wasn't acceptable behaviour, but my opinion in public still changed, and in private my behaviour won't change. So that's your behaviour and your opinion change in public. So this is a short-term level of conformity because it only happens in front of the source of the conformity, and it's not fixed because it only happens in public, not in private. And compliance is where this is the lowest level of conformity. Identification was moderate level. This is the lowest level because you only comply to the behaviour. Your opinions and your values and your beliefs and like your cognitions do not change. They never change. And it's just your behaviour changes in public in front of the source of the conformity. So the swearing one, if my friend was swearing, I would swear to conform to fit to that social behaviour, but I would still think that's wrong, I shouldn't be doing that. And in private, I wouldn't engage in the behaviour, and my opinions would still be my own. I would still think it's wrong. So that's 3 types of conformity. And then not a lot else to say. Okay, so compliance and identification, normative social influence, and internalisation it starts as normative, but I guess you could kind of say it becomes informational because your beliefs genuinely change. But it's the result of normative influence. Can't remember anything else for AO1. Okay, now we move on to conformity to social roles, which is my favourite part of social influence because Zimbardo is a legend. No, he's not. It's kind of not good, but it's a good study. So, conformity to social roles. Zimbardo looked at why we conform to social roles, or how our preconceptions and expectations of social roles affect how we conform. So he conducted the study. I can't remember how many participants it was, but he I feel like it was like 40. He conducted the study in Stanford University, in the basement of Stanford University. He created a, like, what is the word? There's a word in the book, but he created like a mock prison, and he got participants as students, psychology students from the university, and procedure, they all had to have a psychiatric evaluation before they could be chosen for the study to make sure they were mentally okay, because it could be quite distressing, as we will later realise. So they all had to have a psych eval, and then if that was all okay, Zimbardo randomly allocated them to either the role of the prison guard or the prisoner. And those who were chosen as the prisoner, they were actually like play acted, like arrested at the start of the study, like before the study properly began, or when the study began, to take them from their location to the Stanford prison to make it more real. And then at the prison, prisoners and guards were separated. They were told to act how they thought a prisoner and guard would act, and they were separated by like uniform. The guards had reflective sunglasses and batons, and the prisoners were identified by number and not name for de-individuation, to take away their identity. And they wore white smocks, I think the word is a smock, and I don't know what else, but yeah, that's that. And they weren't allowed to wear their own clothes. And then the prisoners were kept in cells, and the guards were basically allowed to do what they like. Okay, that's the procedure. I think that's all we need to know for the procedure. Unless the question's just about the procedure, but I could waffle a little bit more about the procedure if I needed to. Findings. Basically the experiment had to end up. Okay, I forgot where I was because I just had lunch, so I forgot what I was doing. Zimbardo's social roles. Findings, I feel. So findings. Did I say the findings? I'll say them anyway. I think the second day, I'm actually so bored. No, it's okay. I'm not. The prisoners staged a rebellion, I'm pretty sure, on the second day. And they would put like the beds up against their doors so the guards couldn't get in. The guards used divide and rule tactics, and to try and separate the prisoners up, to isolate them, and so they couldn't rebel. Oh, the guards took away the prisoners' beds as punishment, and one prisoner starved themselves and was placed in a hole. I don't know if that was the same prisoner who starved themselves, and that prisoner who starved themselves obviously had to leave the experiment on like the third day or something, and the experiment ended after 6 days instead of the intended 14, I think. So that just shows that like it wasn't great. One prisoner afterwards reported that they had modelled their behaviour after Kulhan Luke. Oh, that's an evaluation point. So, according to Zimbardo, they behaved as he thought they were going to, and they all conformed to their social roles. But let's do evaluation. Zimbardo exaggerated the role of social roles. One psychologist found that a third of what are called guards had behaved as a guard is meant to actually behave. A third had behaved in an overly aggressive manner, and a third had behaved in like an overly nice way, overly sympathetic and lenient to the prisoners. So this suggests Zimbardo exaggerated. And however, one psychologist listened to the conversations of prisoners, and she or he found that half of all conversations were about prison life. And one prisoner, I think it was like prisoner 104, reported that they thought the prison was real, but that it was run by psychologists instead of the government, so they were behaving how they would have behaved. And then Kulhan Luke, one guard modelled their behaviour after Kulhan Luke, which suggests that they had they were behaving in how they behaved was influenced by media, and it wasn't actually how a guard would behave. It was how like they had, I don't know, ethical issues, distressing, and the participants were placed. Findings: participants behaved according to Zimbabwe. They conformed to their social roles, and I was so bored. And one prisoner staged a rebellion, one starved themselves and had to leave early, and one was put in a hole by the guards. The guards used divide and rule tactics. The prisoners would put the beds up against their doors, and the guards would do random calls, like checks, and they would do them in the night time to distress the prisoners and wake them up. And the guards, yeah, they were not nice people to these prisoners. So yeah, the findings were good. According to Zimbabwe, evaluation, Zimbabwe exaggerated the findings. One psychologist found that a third of guards had behaved in how a guard should behave, a third had behaved in an overly aggressive manner, and a third had behaved in an overly sympathetic and lenient manner. However, another psychologist found that a half of all conversations in the experiment were about prison life, which suggests that they were actually like really like psychologically like there. And one participant recorded that they felt that the prison was real, but that it was ran by the government. It was ran by psychologists instead of the government, but they felt the prison was real. Ethical issues, there's a lot of ethical issues with this. I'm not going to go into them all right now. And control, the fact Zimbabwe randomly allocated for participants is good because it really took away participant variables, like characteristics that would have influenced his allocation. And yeah, so that's really good, Zimbabwe, well done. And I don't know what else. One participant recorded that they'd modelled their behaviour after somebody from Cool Hand Luke, the film, so that suggests it wasn't really how they thought guards would actually behave. It was influenced by media influences. So yeah, I think that's everything. Social identity theory as an alternative explanation, exaggerated power of roles, lack of realism, Cool Hand Luke, and internal validity, control. So yeah. Yay. Now moving on to Milgram's obedience. Milgram investigated obedience. In his electric shock study, he used 40 American male participants, and I have such memory fog right now, but so the participants, they were paid like £4.50 to do it, and he used a volunteer sample, and he had the naive and the Confederate were paired together, and at the start of the study they did a fixed lot to pick out who would get the role of a teacher and who would get the role of a learner to make the experiment feel more real. Obviously it was fixed, and the naive participant always got the role of the teacher and the Confederate always got the role of the learner. And there was also an experimenter present who would sit with the in the baseline, the original study, he would sit with the teacher, and he wore a white lab coat in the original study. And the teacher had to administer a shock to the naive participant, the learner, whenever they got the answer wrong on, I think it was meant to be a memory test, like they thought it was a memory test. And at the start of the study, the naive participant was given a very small real voltage shock to make it feel real, and the shocks went from, I don't know what it went from, 0 volts I guess to 450 volts. And so that's the procedure for the original study, and then the findings were that he found 65% of participants conformed to 100% 450 volts, and every 100% conformed to 300 volts. And at 300 volts, that was when the Confederate would start screaming. And at 350 volts, this is the procedure, 315 volts, the Confederate would go silent and then be silent for the study, the rest of it, I think. And he found one naive participant was so distressed, no, there were a couple that were so distressed, and one had a seizure, I think. No, one, that cannot be right. I think one definitely fainted, but a seizure, Milgram, come on, that's not good. But it was very distressing for some of these participants. That's what we need to know. And conformity was very high. Oh, and prior to it, this is evaluation, but prior to it, Sidmard Milgram had actually asked a psychology class what they thought the conformity levels would be, and they said like 4% or something. So that just shows we don't know. We don't know. I'm just going to go back to findings. So when you talk about findings, you need to see the quantitative findings are the voltage stats, 100%, 65%. And then the qualitative findings are the fact many of the naive participants displayed distress, and they bit their nails and they were sweating and they seemed very tense. And three of these naive participants out of 40 had uncontrollable seizures. Full-blown uncontrollable seizures. Milgram should never have been allowed to do a psychology experiment again. Gosh, anyways, that's the findings reiterated, what I got wrong. Wait, let me just check. Oh, okay. And afterwards, a debrief, 84%. I did know this, I was going to do his evaluation, but 84% said they would do the study again, or like they didn't regret having done the study. Evaluation now. Milgram is a bit of an arsehole, like that is not ethically okay. And what else is there to say? Lacks mundane realism again, because electric shocks doesn't really tell us about obedience in real life, does it? And it doesn't tell us about mass obedience, such as Nazi Germany. And what else? Only use male participants, and that doesn't tell us about women. And in one study, 16 out, is this 4 milligram? 16 out of 18 hospital, that's not 4 milligram. What are the other, the French documentary, Gina Perry, listen to it. Only half believed the shocks were real. Demand characteristics, okay, I would have said that. Demand characteristics, because it was so not artificial, but it was so lacking in mundane realism that participants likely figured out that there was someone else going on, not just a memory task. So they were likely affected by that. Yeah, that's all I can think for evaluation. Ethical issues, I said that. Social identity, okay, I need to remember social identity theory for these. Okay. Now, literally straight onto situational variables. Milgram investigated proximity, location, and uniform. I think, yeah. Okay, so in the let's do location. In the location, I can't remember these stats either. In the location variation, he took the study from being in Yale University, Yale? I think it was Yale. The original study was in Yale, and he took it to a rundown office building, and he found obedience decreased from 65% to like, I don't know, like, not that much lower, I didn't think, did it? No, I think location was the lowest. If it was the lowest, then I think it was 20%. No, location wasn't the lowest. Location was 47.5%, because I just looked. Proximity, he investigated proximity in 3 ways. Touch proximity variation, which... uniform was the lowest. That was, like, let's say 18%. 20%. Okay, that's close enough. Okay, and that is when he got a member of public to replace the role of the experimenter, and the experimenter no longer wore the white lab coat, obviously. Proximity, he investigated it in 3 ways. Touch proximity, and I think the phone call, like the experimenter did the phone call. And what was the other proximity variation? Teacher and learner in the same room. Okay, so teacher and learner in the same room, obedience fell to 40%. No, that's like proximity obedience fell to 40%. Touch proximity, it fell to 30%. And what? I don't know. Remote instruction, it fell to 20.5% over the phone. So that says variations, research, evaluation. Face validity, we can always just say face validity, okay? Because it makes sense why these variations would affect conformity, because the rundown office building takes away from the legitimacy of the experiment and the scientific value of the experiment. What's another evaluation point? Proximity evaluation point. Wait, why can I not remember the evaluation for Milgram? Oh. Orne in Holland. The situation was so contrived that it doesn't reflect real life. Demand characteristics. Okay, so it's all the same stuff, really. Okay, obedience, situational explanations. This is agentic state and authoritarian personality. Okay, agentic state refers to when you act as the agent, when who you believe you're working for. So when you're in the agentic state, you're acting as the agent for somebody else. So you have a lack of accountability or responsibility for your behaviour, because you're acting. I'm really cold. Hold on. Because when you're in the agentic state, you're acting as an agent for somebody else who don't have psychological responsibility, and you're freed from the burden of psychological responsibility, and you respect the authority, I don't know. And then the autonomous state, I guess. Yeah, that's when you have autonomy, so freedom, individual freedom, and you take responsibility for your behaviour and your actions. And then the agentic shift is how you shift from the autonomous state to the agentic state, and that involves binding factors, which I can't remember what they are. Okay, it's fine. Then authoritarian personality, well, it's not fine, but I'll look in a minute. Then the authoritarian personality is a psychodynamic approach to explaining how your experiences in childhood through strict parenting and harsh parenting and a lack of pragmatic parenting, your parents aren't reasonable in childhood, they're really strict for no reason really, how that alters your identity and your behaviour as you're older. So the authoritarian personality is a dispositional. Why am I talking about the authoritarian personality? It's legitimacy of authority. Legitimacy of, well, I suppose they link, but legitimacy of authority is if you respect the authority figure, and this is necessary for society and a hierarchy to function properly. And so in Milgram's study, legitimacy of authority was with the experimenter. That's why the uniform variation obedience fell to 20%, because there was no legitimacy of authority. Legitimacy of authority basically means you respect the authority figure, so you're working for them, so they're higher in the hierarchy, so you're deferent to them. Let's just go back real quick to legitimacy of authority, because we need to talk about destructive authority. Wait, let's just talk about the whole of legitimacy of authority again, because I feel like I kind of rushed through it. Legitimacy of authority is, I didn't look in the book, maybe I should, no, I'll do what I can. It's basically if somebody is perceived as having authority, so they are the legitimacy of authority, then you are more likely to obey them because you look up to them and you respect them, and because they are in a position of power where you feel like it's like, it's less your responsibility how you're behaving because you're working for someone else. Like, it's not the agentic state, but it is kind of like you trust, you like trust their judgment because they're perceived to be in a position of power. And this is literally necessary for society to function properly in like the hierarchy, so it has face validity. So that's legitimacy of authority. Then this can lead to destructive authority, which is like Hitler, Trump. Can I say that? Well, I've said it now. So this is where people who have destructive or damaging impacts on society by one key way would be oppressing minority groups or targeting individuals. They're put in positions of power because we respect the legitimacy of authority and we respect the hierarchy. So yeah, evaluation for agentic state is, I can't remember. Oh, I do remember. Milgram, when participants in Milgram's study asked whose responsibility is it if anything happens to, can't remember what the learner, whatever his name was, if anything happens to him, and if when Milgram said when the experimenter said I'm responsible, then the participants would continue to obey after having like temporarily stopped because they needed to check whose responsibility it was. Oh, okay. And then in the nurses study, 16 out of 18 hospital nurses did not obey even. No. 16 out of... No. Yeah, 16 out of 18 hospital nurses disobeyed orders from a doctor. 16 out of 18 hospital nurses disobeyed orders from a doctor who was in a position of authority because he's a legitimate authority, he's a doctor, they're nurses. Like, in the hierarchy of the hospital, the doctors are probably above the nurses. They disobeyed orders from the doctor to administer a high dosage of a drug to a patient, which suggests that legitimacy of authority doesn't always work. This critiques the legitimacy of authority explanation, the agentic state, and legitimacy of authority as well. That's good. That study acts as evaluation for both of them. And then evaluation for agentic... What am I doing? Legitimacy of authority is... Milgram's variations when the experimenter was replaced by a member of the public. Obedience fell from 65% to 20% because the lack of legitimacy of authority, because they weren't perceived to be as much of an authority figure. Also, in the location variation, when it was moved to a rundown office building, that takes away from a legitimacy of authority because the university, Yale University, is a prestigious institution that offers reputation and legitimacy of authority because we think, wow, this is like the real deal. So yeah, now let me check my book. Cannot explain all disobedience. Okay, so this includes Rank and Jacobson study and real world crimes of obedience. I'm not going to remember that one, so I'm not even going to try. I would have done, as well as those ones I just said, I would have done face validity because we just love face validity. Agentic state. Okay, real world application for both of them because it can understand why people obey in real life, and it can help with what is the word I always use? Interventions. If we see obedience is on the rise or a particular person is particularly prone to obedient behaviour, we can intervene and maybe explain that to them. It can improve psychological understanding. Also, it's really valuable in understanding like Nazi Germany and stuff like that as well. So yeah. Now I'm moving on to dispositional. Dispositional explanations of obedience. The authoritarian personality, proposed by Adorno, suggests, I've been doing this for like last 2 days, suggests people obey according to their certain disposition, their personality type. And he proposed the authoritarian personality, which is basically a type of person who is more prone to obedience behaviour. It's a psychodynamic approach, but we'll come on to that in a minute. And characteristics of the authoritarian personality, the AP, they are really deferent and respectful and loyal to authority figures and the hierarchy, and they are overly respectful of those they perceive to be in positions of authority above them. And then they are overly judgmental, dismissive and critical of social groups and people they perceive to be lower than them in the hierarchy. So this can give rise to minority oppression, such as anti-Semitism. That's the authoritarian personality, and this is Adorno proposed it as a psychodynamic approach because it forms in childhood as a result of harsh parenting, overly strict parenting and dogmatic parenting, because they were unreasonable and you didn't have opportunity to have your voice heard. And then if these feelings become repressed, then this forms of authoritarian personality, because later in life these repressed feelings and experiences from childhood become displaced onto your view of society. And you have learned, if you oppose the authority, it's your learned experiences, but if you oppose the authority, you're gonna receive punishment. And so we really respect the authority if that happened to us. And so I think that's all we need to know for the authoritarian personality. And then moving on to, what am I doing? No, because this is just the authoritarian personality. Okay, now I need to do Adorno's research, which I cannot remember for the life of me. Yeah, I can. That is rubbish research, Adorno. His research is the F scale. So, okay, the F scale is Adorno's measure of the authoritarian personality, and it's basically questions, like a questionnaire, and you just have to answer it, and it measures to what extent your authoritarian personality is. You get a score. And he found, there was something else to this, because he found people who scored higher. He found people who scored higher on there's a positive correlation between authoritarian personality, people who were more authoritarian personality according to the F scale, and judgment of minority groups, and their feelings towards minority groups and people lower than them worsened. And then research to support this comes from Milgram and Elms conducted a follow-up study, and they got participants in Milgram's study to do the F scale, and they found participants who scored higher on the F scale they redid the study, and they found participants who scored higher on the F scale were more likely to obey to 100% than participants who scored lower on, who had less of an authoritarian personality according to the F scale. Another criticism of the F scale is that acquiescence bias, demand characteristics, and also it's very right-wing focused. It only focuses on right-wing authoritarianism. That ignores left-wing values, where even if you're left-wing, you could still have your authoritarian personality, communist Russia or Rosa Luxemburg and Karl Liebknecht. So the F scale is not very good. And again, now, if you were to do F scale now, you'd look at it and you think these questions are outdated. So it's lack of temporal validity. I'm cooking. I'm actually so good at psychology. More evaluation for the authoritarian personality is that it can explain Nazi Germany. No, it can't. No, it can't explain mass obedience, because there's no way every single person in Nazi Germany had the authoritarian personality. Like, there's no way. So it might be more of a tangible answer to say something else was involved, like fear or like oppressed freedoms. Like, it's not just the authoritarian personality. What else is there? Oh, social identity theory again. Okay, I'm just going to remember social identity theory for all of this. Okay, that was the authoritarian personality Adorno. Resistance. Wait, I need some coffee. Hold on. Resistance to social influence. I've been doing this literally for the last 5 hours. No, because I've been doing this for the last 5 hours, which I haven't actually been doing this that long. That's quite good. I've gotten a lot of work done. Maybe before this, I was doing resistance to social influence, because I opened a page and I was like, if that came up on my psychology paper, I would know nothing. So let's do resistance to social influence. Let's see what I can remember. It is legitimacy of authority, and no, it's not. See, good job, I've been revising it. It is locus of control and social support. Got that. We've gotten that far. Okay, now I think I can remember it. Like, I think that was the memory cue I needed. Okay, locus of control. This suggests that your view of the world and what you believe, how you interpret the world and how you believe your behaviour and your outcomes in life and your journey through life is what is driven by, is affects your ability to resist conformity and obedience. Because people who have a high external locus of control, ow, I've got a cramp in my leg, they really believe there's external factors that drive their outcomes in life. So somebody with an external locus of control who does terribly on a psychology test is going to say, oh, my teacher wasn't very good, or the exam book wasn't very good, or not that I should have revised more, or psychology is a stupid subject. Whereas somebody with a high internal locus of control would, if they did badly on a psychology test, they would say, I need to revise more next time, like I didn't revise as efficiently as I could, and it's my own fault because I should have done better. I should have written more. Okay, so internal locus of control, they take accountability and responsibility. They are very much self-driven, and it's very like, they believe they're responsible for their outcomes in life and their life experiences. Whereas external locus of control believe it's external environmental factors and factors beyond their control. So they kind of believe like everything happens for a reason, and it's fate. Like, they believe in all of that kind of jar. And so people with an internal locus of control are more easily able to resist conformity and obedience because they're able to resist conformity because they are more self-driven and more assured in their... People with a high internal locus of control are more easily able to resist social pressures to conform, because they let's just establish the fact internal locus of control people are usually smarter. So, case study example, I have an internal locus of control, so I think that's all we need to know. So, people with an internal locus of control are usually smarter and more confident and more self-assured in their own answers. And so they're able to resist conformity because they care less about normative social influence, because they care less about the social pressures of the group and needing to fit in, because they're more self-driven. And they also really care less. They don't care less, but they're less affected by informational social influence, because they are usually more intelligent and they're usually more confident in their own answers, so they're usually less likely to conform to answers of other people, because like ambiguous situations don't affect them in the same way because they're more confident people. These are characteristics of leaders, by the way. So like one day when I run for Prime Minister, like I'll remember that this is what I am. Okay, and people with an external locus of control, on the other hand, are less able to resist pressures to conform because they believe external factors drive their outcomes, and they rely more on the group and being part of a group, and I don't know what else. Yeah, and then obedient people with a high internal locus of control are more easily able to resist pressures to obey because they're more confident, they're more leadership driven, and so they are less affected by the authority figure, and they are less affected by the need to fulfill like the expectations of the authority figure, and they are more assured in themselves and their own actions, and they take responsibility. That's important. They take responsibility, so they can't. So if you're obeying somebody else, you don't have responsibility for your own actions because you're doing it for them, so there's lots of responsibility there. So then people with an external locus of control are less able to resist pressures to obey because they don't have that same level of responsibility, and they believe in external factors, so they would be much more susceptible to the pressures of the authority or the group or whatever's influencing them to obey. Okay, so that was social support. Good job, we remembered that. Now we're going to do... no, that was not social support, that was locus of control. Also, locus of control is a... Yeah, also locus of control is a continuum. It's like... So over here you have high internal locus of control. Over here you have high external locus of control. So it's important to remember the two highs at the two opposite ends. Okay, so here you have low, I can't remember what I said this one was, let's just say this is internal. Here you have low internal locus of control, here you have low external locus of control. And let's quickly do an evaluation point that I've come up with. It's for real world application and psychological understanding and like therapy and stuff. It's better to be in the middle of this continuum, to be somewhere around the middle, because this is a much more healthy outlook on life. Because if you're here and you're really high internal locus of control, then you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself, and that can like sometimes be a bit negative. Like you kind of need to accept that sometimes things are outside of your control, and so if you go through something that's maybe a bit distressing 4 months before your A-levels, maybe that might hinder your ability to revise, and you don't need to take all the responsibility for that because that could cause you a lot of psychological distress. So we need to like not be here and say I'm going to fail my A-levels because it's all my own fault. We need to say there were some external factors there that kind of mean I'm not going to do as well as I wanted. So then you need to be a low internal locus of control would be good. And here, high external locus of control. You don't want to be high external locus of control either, because that really just means you're a bit of a loser. Like, we do need to take some accountability. We need to be around here somewhere. Because if you're high external locus of control, you're probably not going to be getting much revision done. You're probably just going to put it all down to fate, and you're going to blame the world for all your problems. And that's just not real. Like, come on, you need to be here. You need to revise, you need to accept what you get in your exams. That is up to how much you're revising. So we want to be here, we want to be healthy, and as a psychologist or therapist, if we recognise somebody is really high on either of these, we need to help to bring them towards the middle, because this is balance. This is where we need to be at equilibrium. Is that the right word? I've never used that before. So we need to be here, not here. And now we move on to social support. Social support suggests that when you have social support, this can either be the presence of somebody who agrees with what you believe, or it can be the presence of somebody that disagrees with what you believe and also disagrees with what the majority believes. So they're breaking the power of unanimity. So in social support, so when there's social support, you're basically more easily able to resist pressures to social influence, because if social support can either come in the form of somebody who agrees with you and the right answers, they're agreeing with the right answer, or at least what your interpretation of the right answer is. So my favourite colour is red. 10 people are saying their favourite colour is blue. Somebody else is offering that their favourite colour is red as well. I'm saying, okay, I'm going to admit my favourite colour is red, even though I know I'm going to be like a social outcast because I have social support and somebody else is doing that. Or it can be somebody else who is disagreeing with the majority and disagreeing with you. So my favourite colour is red, 10 people's favourite colour is blue, and another person's favourite colour is yellow. So social support can either be agreeing with you or disagreeing with you. It doesn't matter. They just need to disagree with the majority to break the power of the majority and the unanimity of the majority. Because when we have social support, we see a crack in the power of the majority, and it's no longer as strong or as powerful or as socially scary as it was originally. So this works in conformity because we are more easily able to conform when we have social support, because the social support acts as a model. For both of them, it acts as a model of the behaviour. So in conformity, it acts as a model of non-conforming behaviour. And then we think we're psychologically free to also act independently and also engage in non-conforming behaviour. And in obedience, it acts as a model of disobedient behaviour, because then we think, oh, somebody else is disobeying, we can disobey as well, because we're thinking the majority is not as powerful as we originally thought. And we have the social support to be psychologically free to act independently of the majority. So that's social support. Okay, evaluation of social support and locus of control. Okay, locus of control. I'm going to do all of my own ones. No, I'm going to do the ones in the book, because those are the boring ones. What are the ones in the book? Locus of control. Wait, I do know this. I do know this because I literally just did a poster on it. Susan Albrecht did Teen Fresh Start USA, and this is an 8-week program in the US, obviously, and it's for pregnant adolescents aged 14 to 19. And she wanted to see if the presence of social support, a buddy, would help the adolescents, the pregnant teens, from resisting pressures to smoke. And her findings were that those who had the buddy, the experimental group, they were much more likely to resist pressures to smoke than a control group who didn't have a buddy. So this supports the role of social support. Additionally, in Ash's study, when there was in the unanimity variation, when there was a dissenter present, conformity decreased, which acts as a strength of the conformity social support explanation. And what else can we say for social support evaluation? Face validity. It makes sense why having somebody else disagreeing with the power of the majority would help you to feel freer to act independently. It's valuable in schools. Oh, I've already done a bit of evaluation. It's valuable in schools in helping students who are unable to raise their hand, or they always agree with what everyone else says. And we can offer social support and encourage students to act independently by offering social support, which will improve their life chances of independence. And legitimacy of authority. Milgram, when the experimenter was replaced by a member of the public, obedience decreased from 65% to 20%. But also the smear test. Is that what it's called? No, I don't think that's what it's called. What is it called? The oil company. No, it's the oil company smear test. They found participants were more easily able to resist social pressures because they were in groups. So they had time to discuss that social support, because they had time to discuss. It's a smear campaign, and they had time to discuss what they were going to say. So the social support is offered there, so that supports that. We were moving on to locus of control. Locus of control. I feel like I've already done this? No, I haven't. Locus of control is Holland. 37% of internals did not continue to the highest level, 23% did. And contradictory research. Oh, I've not learned that one. I'm not learning the other one either, apparently, but I'm not trying to learn that one, I've decided. Oh, limited, okay, I know this. Limited role of locus of control, Rutter. Is that his name, Rutter or Rotter? Whatever his name is. He waffle. And then he basically said, locus of control only really applies to unfamiliar or new situations because the way we conform or obey isn't going to really change in experiences we've already had of conformity or obedience. So it has to be like new and unfamiliar situations, really. So limited application of locus of control. Also individual differences, locus of control. I don't really know. Yeah, you could say a lot more that I would come up with, I'm sure, if I was asked a 16 marker, but there we go. I had to change outfits because I was freezing. But let's get back to it. Also, I got these earrings from Tuck. Wait, as if you're actually gonna have watched all of these, but no, you'll watch these in like 5 years and it'll be in like front of a class, you'll be showing them. Then everyone will laugh at me, but yeah, I got these earrings from Tuck for £5, so I was really proud of myself. Anyways, let's get back to it. Minority influence. 2 pages left of social influence. I said I'd get it all done today. All the paper 1 done today. Do you think that's gonna happen? Minority influence. Oh, okay. I'm not looking at the back. I'm so ill. Okay, for the minority influence to be successful. I don't know who thought of this idea. Do I need to know? No, I can't see anywhere, so. For minority influence to be successful, they need to be consistent, flexible, and committed. Okay, consistency can either be synchronic or diachronic. Synchronic means it's multiple people being consistent together. So, like, me and 5 of my friends being consistent together. Or diachronic, 1 person being consistent for a longer period of time. So me being consistent in my view for 5 months instead of 5 days. And consistency basically shows that you're really... It's kind of hard to not mix it up with commitment. It really shows that you have thought about your belief, your view, and that it's something you've not just done willy-nilly, like you've actually thought about it because you're maintaining the view. And flexibility. Okay, flexibility basically means that you're open to reasonable arguments. You accept like valid arguments, like you're not just putting everything down, and you're willing to compromise on some areas of your view to amend it to take into account other valid arguments or pieces of information. Flexibility is essential to be pragmatic and not dogmatic, because if you're not flexible, you will be shown to have dogma, and that won't be good because it just comes across very strong, and nobody wants to follow somebody who's being dogmatic and who's like telling them what to do without any sense of compromise. It's not reasonable. Commitment. You need to be committed to show that your cause... Well, one, you need to be committed because it brings attention to the cause if you're committed. And you also need to be committed to show that your cause is something that is serious. It's something you're really taking seriously. It's not just something you're doing willy-nilly. Like, you're actually, like, putting a lot of effort and time into this. And if you're putting that much time and effort into it, it's going to encourage other people to maybe think... It'll encourage deeper processing, so it'll encourage other people to maybe think, well, if they're putting that much time into it, then maybe it is something worth looking at. And this involves the augmentation principle, which is... Okay, the augmentation principle involves you being... showing some kind of risk, engaging in some kind of risky behaviour, some kind of self-sacrifice, or something that kind of like puts you in a danger you wouldn't ordinarily be in. So an example is like the suffragettes like ran in front of horses, or they refused to eat in Britain. So yeah, and augmentation principle is literally so essential for the minority influence to be successful. This commitment is so important to encourage deeper processing. How does it work? They need to bring attention to their cause by protest, highlighting some kind of information. They need to provide the information. They can't just say something. They need to have some kind of backing to it. And this will encourage deeper processing, and it will encourage people to question social norms and what they know and what they already believe. And it will create a paradigm eventually. Then it will, the snowball effect will happen, and the more the minority influence gains momentum and it gains support, it will become a snowball. It will slowly, gradually grow until it quickly grows. And then the change in societal views that the minority influence will eventually become the majority influence. And that is the paradigm shift. So yeah, that's how minority influence works. And yeah, is that all? Yeah, that's all I'm doing, minority influence. Explaining process. We've just done explaining process. Oh, social cryptomnesia. Is that how you say it? Social cryptomnesia? That basically means you know the change has occurred, but you can't remember how it's occurred. So people know that there has been a change in a belief that, okay, let's just ignore America and half the world, but in the UK, abortion is acceptable, and it's for the most of the population. Most of the British population do not look at abortion as being morally wrong. But the social cryptomnesia is, how did that happen? Well, the thalidomide crisis, that was pretty important in bringing about the Abortion Act. So, yeah, that's a bit of history, a bit of psychology, a bit of so smart. So yeah, social cryptomnesia is, you know, changes occurred, but you can't really remember how. So yeah. What else do we need to know for AO1? I swear that's it. That is it. Oh, okay, so flexibility, they can't be seen to be rigid or unbending, so that's dogma. Evaluation for minority influence. I can't remember what the research... No, I can. Is this the San Diego... No, I don't think it is. Moscovici. Yes. Is it Moscovici? Yes, Moscovici. Moscovici's blue-green side study, where basically he had one naive participant, and then he had the Confederates all saying that the blue sides were green when actually they weren't. And he found if there was... Then he found when he introduced a dissenter to the majority who always gave a different wrong answer, that was able to break the power from the majority, act as the minority influence, and the naive was free to say what they really think. And they agreed with the dissenter. What else is there? Well, real-world application, because it can be applied to understanding how minority influences gain momentum. Which can be useful for politics, Greta Thunberg, Martin Luther King, all kind of cases of historical social change. It's important to know the psychological background behind that. However, no, that's not coming to my head. I don't know. Face validity again, because the idea that you need to be committed, flexible, and committed, flexible and consistent in your view. It has a lot of face validity, like that makes sense why that would work. And however, when we see like minority influencers who are committed to their views, such as like Greenpeace, is that what it's called? Not Greenpeace, like the oil people, like, oh, this is good. So they're committed because they throw paint at stuff like the Mona Lisa and the girl with the pearl earring. But this angered much of the public. I think that's important because it is important to know that the augmentation principle, if you're putting yourself at risk and you're showing your commitment, also that links to dogma. You can't do it in a way where it's going to offend the public so severely. Like, you kind of need to think about how you're going to do it, because to throw paint at the Mona Lisa or whatever it was they threw paint at, it's like, what are you doing? Like, yeah, so you need to take into account public opinion. So anyways, this basically suggests that we can use this to critique the minority influence explanation, say, well, it's too simplistic and it's not really taking into account the nitty gritty parts and how they have to function in a certain way, because if you go about it in the wrong way, you're just going to offend people and you're not going to get anywhere. Greta Thunberg, example of minority influence. Lots of people don't like her because her commitment to climate change is possibly a bit dogmatic, and the way she goes about it is, I don't know, not great. I did just have a cheeky look at the book as well, and the evaluation I need to remember for this is Martin, which I literally do not remember this at all. But I need to remember that because that's half the page. But maybe I'll think of something else, because I don't think I'm going to remember that. Okay, now we're going to talk about social influence and social change, which I literally said in minority influence, which I wasn't meant to do, I fear, but it's fine. Yeah. Social influence and social change. This works. I've said all of it. What did I say in AO1? Because, like, for AO1 for minority influence, all you need to know is consistency, commitment, flexibility. Oh, and then you do need to know explaining the process of change. Okay, this is just that, but in much more detail. I guess this is focusing in an area of AO1 for minority influence in much more detail. Okay, so, which could be my evaluation point? Okay. Last page. Oh my god. Social influence, social change. For the minority to successfully elicit social change and to successfully have some level of social influence, they need to first of all draw attention to their cause. Putting posters up, protests. They then need to, there's 6 stages. They then need to, okay, let's go through all of them, I can remember. Drawing attention, deeper processing, snowball effect, augmentation principle, consistency, okay, and social cryptomnesia, okay. So they need to draw attention, they need to be consistent, they need to have augmentation principle, snowball effect, I missed something out. Deeper process. Draw attention, consistency, deeper processing, augmentation principle, snowball effect, and social cryptomnesia. Yes, okay. Lessons from conformity research. Ash, no. Yes. Ash is Confederate. Normative social influence. Phoenix research. Zimbardo. Gradual commitment. Milgram. disobedient role models. Evaluation, I've given up. Evaluation, Nolan. Energy use habits in San Diego. They put posters up in a San Diego apartment block. No, they put posters up in a San Diego apartment block, and they found that people changed their opinions when they were told that other people were saving their energy, so encourages deeper processing. So real world application there. Face validity again. New math. Social change is due to the type of thinking that minorities inspire. Divergent thinking. And Diane Mackey disagrees and suggests it's a majority influence. Okay. Social influence done, yes.